Well, hey friends, we've come to the last day of my pilgrimage in Poland. Another beautiful day. Gorgeous. I decided to make a change to the itinerary today. I had planned to go to Oskar Schindler's factory and maybe the Jewish quarter. But I just thought the visit that I made today to Nowa Huta was important for us. And Nowa Huta was a town that the Soviets developed from scratch. It was to be a city where there is no God, there are no churches. And so they began to construct things like that. In conversations, there are stories still. Communism was not that long ago. It's still, in many respects, a lived reality. It's worked into their architecture in some ways, the newer creations. But also, there are stories about the work ethic. When everybody gets paid the same, then personal responsibility is stripped away just a little bit, and so you don't work hard. Whether you work, you don't work, you get paid the same. It doesn't matter. Something like that is the saying. It has a bearing on our own day in terms of the removal of personal responsibility through different types of ideologies, materialism being one. So I thought it was important for us as we discern our steps forward and consider our mission, that is building a parish, that we go to this place that was denied parishes, that in a sense was denied God, but you cannot deny God. And this came out in the midst of the best attempts of the Soviets, as the Polish people more and more demanded that there be a place for worship. Early on in John Paul II's time here in Krakow, he began to celebrate an annual midnight mass at Nowa Huta in an open field, just to demonstrate there is a need here for a church. Permit me as you look at these photographs and videos of the Ark Church, to read an excerpt from George Weigel's biography of the Pope. So it goes in part like this. Bracketing the issues in canon law, he and courageous priests would form a parish without a church through the dogged, often door-to-door evangelization of a neighborhood over a period of months or years. Then, when a living parish had been created, the government would be presented with a fait accompli. Look, the people want a church. Society needs a church. One focal point for this strategy was Nowa Huta, the model workers' town without a church built by the communists on the outskirts of Krakow. The new town was filled with enormous apartment blocks, some of which contained as many as 450 flats. Yet there was no way to pass laterally from one apartment to another down the long axis of a building. If you wanted to visit a neighbor outside the 2 or 3 apartment module in which you lived, you went down the stairs or elevator, left the building, re-entered through another door, and then climbed the stairs or took the elevator up to your neighbor's module. They wanted to disrupt community life. Nowa Huta's apartment blocks were aptly described as human filing cabinets, and the cabinets were deliberately designed to keep the files separated. Churches, placed for communities independent of the regime, had no place in Nowa Huta. A symbol of the struggle for Nowa Huta's soul was the building of what became known as the Ark Church, which arose from the field in the Biance neighborhood, where Wojtyła had celebrated Christmas midnight mass since 1959. Permission for building this assertively modern structure, its architecture suggesting the church as the ark in which Mary, Queen of Poland, was saving her people, was finally obtained on October 13, 1967, after years of agitation. The very next day, October 14th, Cardinal Karol Wojtyła led a groundbreaking ceremony, swinging a pickaxe and helping dig the first section of the trench for the church's foundation, in which the stone from St. Peter's tomb donated by Pope Paul VI would be embedded. 10 years of volunteer labor from all over Poland and throughout Europe went into completing the Ark Church. Its exterior was decorated by 2 million small polished stones from the riverbeds of Poland. The interior was dominated by a great steel figure of the crucified Christ forged by the workers at Nowa Huta's linen steelworks. The tabernacle was a gift from the Diocese of St. Pölten in Austria and was shaped like a model of the solar system. Its decoration included a piece of moon rock given to Paul VI by an American astronaut. The Dutch had donated the church's bells. The Ark Church was dedicated by Cardinal Wojtyła on May 15, 1977. His sermon at the dedication mass, attended by pilgrims from Austria, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Germany, Holland, Portugal, Italy, Canada, the United States, England, Finland, and France, put a new definition on the model workers' town. This is not a city of people who belong to no one, the cardinal insisted, a people to whom one may do whatever one wants, who may be manipulated according to the laws or rules of production and consumption. This is a city of the children of God. This temple was necessary so that this could be expressed, that it could be emphasized. So too is it necessary for us. We are the children of God, right? And it's necessary that we express that in a temple built to God. Now, following the visit to Nowa Huta, we visited the Church of the Holy Cross. The architecture here was quite breathtaking. It's an earlier form of architecture than the Baroque that you've seen in many of the places, simpler, which I found quite lovely. I think you can see maybe in some of these pictures some of the gifts of the trinkets that were left by people who had offered prayers and received an answer, or made an offering when they offered a prayer. And then finally we visited a graveyard, as they call it, a cemetery. And you'll notice not only does the graveyard itself look different with the tombs, but you'll see all the flowers, and at night you'll be able to see these candles going. Flowers being sold everywhere here in Krakow and throughout Poland for All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. It's the tradition that they decorate the family tomb, and you pray for your family members, and everybody gets work off on All Saints' Day. It's amazing how integrated still the church is with the nation's life. You know, what would I say to kind of wrap things up here in Poland? I mean, how do you wrap things up? I would say, one, I'm coming away with a great sense of my littleness. Our patron was an extraordinary man, holy, gifted beyond belief, and lived at a perfect time. And he was providential, as well as his appointment here in Krakow. The history of the church and the Polish nation is woven so deeply together. You can see this in Wawel Cathedral, for example, where kings were crowned or went through a coronation ceremony, you know, and also in the Church of Saint Stanislaw, where the good bishop of, gosh, almost 1,000 years ago or so, was murdered by the king. The history is intertwined, and as Poland experienced terrible tragedies, the partitions, and then the wars, the oppression, one constant was the Catholic Church. It maintained, helped to conserve the identity of the Polish people. I mean, this is part of why the church is naturally conservative, not as we would speak of it in maybe our politics, but that it doesn't disregard the past, but it carries it along into the future, into the present and into the future. I mean, that's part of what the vestments indicate. That's part of why we still want Latin in the Mass is we don't reject the past, but it informs us. It carries our identity, and we're entrusted with it as a treasure to enrich and to pass on to future generations. We're blessed with an extraordinary patron, which comes out so many ways in these different places here in Krakow. All right, I'll say goodbye for now, and see you tomorrow when I arrive or when I make my way to Rome. Bless you.